state of Oregon, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that students don't need to prove mastery of reading, writing, or math to graduate because this harms students of color. Yep, that's what we're talking about today. What do you even say? I mean, it's like, oh, what? What? Let's get into it. Here we go. I mean, why don't we just, put kids in ninth grade and say, hey, good luck, guys. I mean, if you, hang out for a few classes each year, well, we'll just give you a diploma. Why don't we just do that? I mean, who needs reading, writing, or math? You don't really need that in college anymore, do you? It brings up the question, do we really need college? Well, workplace sure seems to. But if you are an Oregon student, and this is part of the whole pandemic thing. No, we're not testing. We're stopping testing. This is one of those tests. But because they consistently cite harming students of color, this is what is harming students of color, is bringing that baseline down to the point where you just graduate damn near anybody, whether or not they can read or write. Because when they get out there in the real world, hey, can you work out what you need to do for this job description? Well, I didn't really need to learn how to read, write, or do math at my high school, but they still graduated me. Couldn't really get into a good college because, can't really read, write, or do math. This doesn't help kids out. This is reverse discrimination for sure. This is what this is. You're hammering on these kids. Make them learn as much as they can without flunking them. That's the way I would run this kind of thing. I don't care if they're getting C's. Who cares? If you're learning, then you'll know it. You'll know when kids are learning, but kids aren't really learning much these days, are they? They're learning the wrong stuff. The stuff that we're seeing all around the country is what they're learning. And it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo nonsense. I see it at the protests and you're like, okay, yep, you're running around with half a deck of cards here. Let's see how you do in real world. Blue hair, the standard prototype. Young kid just think that they've got the world by the tail. And in reality, they got nothing, including a job, no ability to get a job. And that's where bringing all these standards down, it doesn't help these kids out. Just pass you anyway. They got to learn. Oregon high school students won't have to prove basic mastery of reading, writing, or math to graduate from high school until at least 2029, the State Board of Education decided unanimously on Thursday, extending the pause on the controversial graduation requirement that began in 2020. You don't have to prove basic mastery in reading, writing, or math. I mean, aren't those just the absolute basics? They are. And you use them in daily life. I use them in daily life damn near every day, right? Got to read. Math is probably the third one. Being able to write? Absolutely. Even if it's just convincing somebody in something in an email. How can I write this in a way that gets my point across? You don't have those skills, you're hosed. And that's what you're doing to these kids. You are hosing these kids all in the name of racism. The vote went against the desires of dozens of Oregonians who submitted public comments, insisting the standard should be reinstated. You think? Right? Including former Republican gubernatorial candidate Kristine Drazen. Backlash against the lowered standard had already delayed the vote, originally slated to take place in September. You see communities where the high school graduation rate is super low and, just getting kids to go to school is a struggle because what they've got going on at home is just horrific. And then you see communities. I live in a community where you've got a ton of Chinese folks sending their kids to public school and Indian people sending their kids to school. They study, right? So Bellevue High School used to have one of the most famous football programs in the United States, we would consistently take on big teams from Texas and oftentimes beat them. That was in a time where Bellevue High School, I think, won 7 out of 8 state titles in a row. My kids were there. So we've gone from that, and the way that just development has gone, and influx of Chinese and influx of Indian folks. A lot of it's tech world. A lot of it is investment in a super hot market, and that's Bellevue. We've gone from having really epic football teams to, the chess team is, they are strong. You know what I mean? Because you just don't have the big kids anymore. You don't have the big kids, but you've got super smart kids. And a lot of that has to do with what's going on at home. These kids study. Their parents make them study. I see it at the gym that I work out at, which is not just a gym. It's a whole social and a bunch of stuff at the Bellevue Club. They study. They're not sitting around going, well, yeah, you don't need to read, write, or, do math. We're all good there. State says I don't have to do it, so I'm going to graduate anyway. Nah, their parents just make them. Their community just, hey, in order to get ahead, you got to be able to do all this. You got to be able to compete in the real world. And guess what? Those other folks out there, they're going to be able to read, write, and do math, not just at a basic level, but at a much higher level. And those are the people that get ahead. So what we're doing here, this isn't going in the right direction. This is going in the wrong direction. Opponents argue that pausing the requirement devalues an Oregon diploma. If I see a kid coming from an Oregon diploma and he hasn't gone to college, I'm going to talk to him, but that's going to come across one way or the other pretty soon in their job duties, right? If you can't do the basics, then, maybe this job isn't for you. Giving students with low academic skills extra instruction in writing and math, which most high schools did in response to the graduating rules, helped them, they argued. Any additional learning kids do is good. Period. How about that? Taking these requirements and say, that's all good because, those kids, they're not really passing at, any kind of level. So let's just cut them loose because this is racist. But leaders at the Oregon Department of Education and members of the state school board said requiring all students to pass one of several standardized tests or create an in-depth assignment their teacher judged as meeting state standards was a harmful hurdle for historically marginalized students. It's a misuse of state tests and did not translate to meaningful improvements in students' post-high school success. I find that hard to believe. I find that just not to be. That defies logic. And why are we doing it? Isn't this the school system? I guess what you can say is this is the school system in Oregon. Just so woke that they're torpedoing their own kids. It's like, oh, no, you don't need to do that. It's all good. You just go ahead and graduate. See you out there. See you out there in the real world. We'll see how this goes. Meanwhile, kids in my community are just, not playing sports. They're just studying. Guess what? Those are the kids that are going to get ahead. Those are the kids that are going to get into college. Those are the kids that are going to get the jobs. Those are the kids that are going to get $200,000 a year jobs in their first job at Amazon. Not these kids who are like, go ahead and pass them. Yeah, don't want to harm the marginalized students. So higher rates of students of color, students learning English as a second language, and students with disabilities ended up having to take intensive senior year writing and math classes to prove they deserved a diploma. Okay, so you actually had to go to school and learn. Huh. Shocking. Oh, we don't want to do that. We can't have that because, the stats don't correlate to them improving it, whatever. That denied those students the opportunity to take an elective. So you're telling me that you get some senior writing and math classes and you want them to take a basket weaving instead? Is that what we're doing? So it seems. So that denied those students the opportunity to take an elective. Well, if they go to college, they're going to get plenty of opportunity for that as well, right? Despite the lack of evidence, the extra academic work helped them in the workplace or at college, they said. Think it through, people. A little bit of extra math, a little bit of extra, what is it? Writing and math. Yeah, a little extra. Does that hurt anybody? Hey, Jimmy, you got to be able to write a complete sentence. Oh, okay. Here's how to do that. Is that a bad thing? This is school, right? This is school. If we were talking about, how to be a drug dealer, even then you got to do math. Shocking. Board members understood the state-mandated standardized tests will still be administered to most Oregon high school students. They just won't be used to determine whether a student has the skills necessary to graduate. How we get here, well, actually, we know how we get here, right? It's just so woke. We're so woke. Don't want to impact the marginalized kids. We just want to beat them down further. And that's what I see happening. Kids who don't get the opportunity to learn, yeah. How's that working out? Mom and dad at home. Maybe there's no dad at home. Who knows? You got all kinds of chaos going on at home. Those are the kids that rarely make it out and do something meaningful, right? And their uphill battle right from the start. School? Teach them a bunch of stuff. That's what I say. Teach them a bunch of stuff. We haven't suspended any sort of assessment, State Board member Vicky Lopez-Sanchez, a dean at Portland Community College, said Thursday's meeting. The only thing we are suspending is the inappropriate use of how those assessments were being used. I think that really is the best interest of Oregon students. Okay. Oregon lawmakers, however, have mandated that families be told each year that they can opt their student out of taking state tests. And 1/3 of high school juniors didn't take the test last spring, meaning they and their families don't necessarily know how they measure up against statewide academic standards. Standards? Who cares? Gonna graduate that bad boy anyway. Yeah, F that. I'll have, if I am not an academically oriented student, somebody gives me the option, say, I'm just not into school. Somebody gives me the option to not take a test. I'm going to do that. But moving down the road, my senior year in high school, I basically took weight training, and like shop or something because I had enough credits. I was taking a high level calculus class and I was on the struggle bus. It was like AP calculus or some damn thing. I don't know. I was on the struggle bus and my teacher told me, Mr. Olfert told me, if you can get through this, this will benefit you in life. Yeah, your GPA is going to take a whack. I think I graduated with like a 3.78, something like that. Not great. I mean, not epic, but not terrible either. Decent GPA. But where that did a disservice for me dropping out of that advanced, whatever it was, calculus class was when I got to college. I barely survived college calculus. Business calculus, because I was going to get a business degree. I ended up not getting any degree. But I think the more learning that you do, the better off it is going to serve you in life. That's just my opinion. And especially when you're talking about standards of, the BIPOC community, impacting the BIPOC community. This is the stuff that is impacting the BIPOC community because you're not teaching the kids, hey, you might have to work hard. Hey, you might struggle. And when you struggle, you work a little bit harder. And that is how you make it through. It's like, okay, this job sucks. Well, work hard, get your experience in, get that resume built, move on to the next job. It's going to be hard. Nobody said this would be easy, right? Same thing with school. Same thing with college. If you want to come out with a degree that you're going to make some real money at, guess what? Reading, writing, and math, they're in there. You're going to need to know how to do that. The option to not take that test does not help you. Proving mastery of reading, writing, and math on one of many standardized tests or a teacher-judged in-depth assignment was one of several Oregon graduation requirements. Students also have to earn a prescribed number of credits and complete an education plan that maps out how they can achieve post-high school goals. All right, so you've got some of the stuff in there, but then you're taking away some of the essentials, which is, hey, let's see how you sit. See how you sit with these basic skill sets. I don't want to do that. It's impacting the kids. During the pandemic, Governor Kate Brown signed a bill freezing the proficiency requirements Why? Why would you do that? As standardized tests weren't happening amid school closures, lawmakers decided to order a more comprehensive review of graduation requirements. Make it harder on the kids, because then they're going to learn more. That's my thought. But instead, we're just coddling these kids. Got a whole generation of coddled children out there. And the younger ones now are even worse. You talk to them and they're just so entitled. Now I'm just ranting like an old man, right? But I'm an employer. So I notice when you don't have good punctuation, because that reflects back on me as an employer. I notice when you don't have good verbal skills because your English is terrible. Not as far as your English speaking, but your ability to comprehend the English language. And oftentimes this isn't for somebody where English is a second language. This is English as a numero uno language, right? Primero. So, the more learning you can do and the more proficiency you can prove, the better off you're going to be in life. Now you might say, well, Sean, you're full of crap. You didn't graduate from college. No, but I got into UW. I got into a bunch of other colleges. I went there. And in real estate's one of those eat what you kill type environments. And if you kill enough, you're going to do fine. Well, I was able to do that, but I had enough of a skill set to get me there, right? I had enough of the basics. I can understand profit and loss statement. I can understand a basic balance sheet. I've got the math ability to do math that you need to for real estate, which is not high level stuff, but most of life isn't high level stuff unless you're into some kind of engineering. And then that's a whole nother ball game. And people looking at engineering as a career, they're going to blow past all this. What we are talking about kids on that bottom rung of education. You don't need to take that test. It'll be fine. It's going to work out for you just fine. McDonald's is hiring and they pay like $20 an hour, right? Those are your options without, a decent education or some kind of history in the workplace. So, do we need education? I don't think we need a lot of the liberal art education that kids are getting, but reading, writing, and arithmetic, yes. Yeah, those are life skills that are still very desirable in the workplace. And then you take that and you extrapolate that to the whole computer deal, to AI. I mean, you've got to have a basic handle on a lot of this in order to get into that stuff. You got to be able to, really process some information. And if you skated through high school and you learned very little, unless you're just a complete computer nerd, and there's plenty of those out there that drop out from high school, but those kids are unique in and of themselves. We are not talking about those kids because those kids could pass these standardized tests without taking any high school classes at all, right? Talking to one of my best friends from high school. He's the best man in my wedding. He has he's got a master's degree. He's got a DDS and he's got some other kind of degree. He's an oral facial pain. He's a TMJ specialist, advanced dentist, whatever you want to call it. We were talking about a couple of kids that we knew that came from a super smart family. And I think the girl was Chinese background. The girl was, I think, 12 in my class when I was a senior. Maybe she was 13, something like that. And she would sit back and read a book the whole time through class. And I remember the teacher saying when she wasn't in class one day, hey, you know what? Some of you might be wondering why I give a hall pass to over here, and the rest of you got to pay attention. Well, no matter complex the situation or the thing that I'm talking about, and this was, I think, in like AP English or something like that. No matter how complex it is, and I can see her over there reading, and this is a teacher talking. No matter how complex it is, I can hit her up, just boom. Hey, you answer this question. And she would just verbatim give textbook answer to whatever it was that he came up with. Just students like that are just, she's reading some fiction book on something or other because she's so advanced that she doesn't need to sit there and take notes like the rest of us who are like, God, I don't even know what that is. And she's already knows it. You know what I mean? Those are the kids that are going to go out and do just fine. We're not talking about them. We're talking about kids who need the extra learning. And yet we're giving them the option to go, it's okay. Just do whatever you want. It'll be fine. Is there anything else here? Yeah, no, it's more frustrating stuff. It's frustrating stuff that just kind of shows how the United States academics are not going in the right direction. How about that? Kids aren't learning what they need to because we've dumbed it down so much to the lowest common denominator that we're just putting out a whole bunch of kids that, their skill set, it doesn't prepare them for the real world, which is you got to be able to read, write, and do math. And we're just not doing that. So many kids are graduating without having the ability past like the 4th grade, which is basic reading mastery, basic math. That's what they're getting out there. And then we wonder why we can't compete with other countries just dominating. They're sending all their kids, to our universities, and they're buying houses in our communities. And we wonder why we can't compete. It's like, I don't get it. Don't understand. Proficiency exam to graduate. We don't need that. Just throw that by the wayside. It'll be fine. Little Johnny's going to be good. He's a big, tough kid. He'll work in the warehouse at Amazon hoisting boxes until his back blows out at age 29 and he goes out on disability and then he gets hooked on drugs and it just goes, crashes and burns. All right. That's enough of this. Oregon's education system is in line with a lot of the rest of their politics. How about that? Just kind of like a podcast I did yesterday where Victoria's Secret is like, all that woke stuff, all the woke models we had, all the, body inclusivity, can't really tell if it's a boy or a girl, but they're wearing some underwear. Yeah, all of that didn't really work out. And they're going back to their ultra sexiness models. Yeah, I feel like at some point in time, Oregon's going to go, and a lot of these education systems are going to go, we graduated a lot of kids who might not have much of a chance out there in the real world. Yeah, that doesn't look like that's working out all that well. Get woke, go broke. It's what we're doing. It's what Oregon's doing. And unfortunately, the kids are the ones that are suffering from it. I don't have to take a test. I'm all over that. All right. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.